Estalia, a land of petty merchant princes and trivial warlords, each as delusional as the next. They think their noble houses proud and powerful, but they are little more than common rabble when compared to the prestigious bloodlines of Araby. It was therefore a blessing to these uncivilized lands when the mighty Sultan crossed the waters with his legions and kindly delivered order to these untamed lands. But his kindness was not met with gratitude. The armies of Estalia banded together and sought to drive away the forces of civilization, yet their defiance was little more than an irritation for the Sultan. The horn of war blared in the distance. The knights of Bretonnia had arrived, lance and horse covered in tattered heraldry, intent on driving the Sultan from his rightful conquest. In a cruel joke of fate, the Sultan was cast low, his army scattered, the mighty nation of Araby was defeated. How proud the humble folk of Estalia and Bretonnia must have felt when they turned back the great armies of the Sultan. And proud they should be. None would deny that it was not a great victory. But in their glee and revelry, they made a crucial error. They thought the great Sultan of Araby vanquished. Poor things. It will take more than a Bretonnian lance to lay low the Sultan. Vanquishment is for lesser beings. The Sultan merely rests, awaiting the day he should have his revenge. The years have passed, the brave warriors of the Crusades have grown old and passed on to Moor's garden. But the Sultan yet remains, and he has awoken once again. It is the sincerest hope of the most gracious and merciful Sultan that the lands of the Crusaders have enjoyed their times of peace whilst they could. The sands quake as the emirs of Araby summon their levies and hurry to answer the call of their beloved Sultan, whose absence they have mourned for far too long. Let conquest resume. Let the lands of Estalia learn that defiance was never to be their salvation. Let the old world learn to fear once again the name of Jaffar, Sultan of Araby. Awoken and primed for conquest, Sultan Jaffar donned his imperial crown once again, and began the arduous task of summoning his scattered armies at his ancient capital of Al-Haik. To the south, the isolated town of the Bakr Oasis, after all these years, had kept faith with the Sultan, and were quick to send emissaries to recognize the supremacy of the Sultan. Their loyalty would not be forgotten. To the east of the Bakr Oasis lay the town of Wadi Alisad, a once loyal stronghold of the crown. These lands now lay in the hands of the crusading Bretonnian knights. An insult, but one that would soon be corrected. To the south, the Nasser Dunes crawled with the decadent hedonists of Slaanesh. The presence of a chaos stronghold so close to the capital could not be tolerated. To the north, straddling the ocean between Araby and Estalia, lay the lands of the Vampire Coast, undead pirates and sorcerers with a thirst for plunder. They should think again if they think Arabian riches easy spoils. The Sultan marched south with his force, stopping just shy of the border with the Crusaders. He sounded the call, and loyal men made the march across the desert to stand at the side of their lord and master. An emissary was dispatched to the Crusaders, a formal declaration of war in hand, informing them of the Sultan's intent to assert his sovereignty, a courtesy they did not deserve. In the shade of the great pyramids of the Nehekaran kings, a relic of a once great civilization's westward expansion, the Sultan marched at the head of his host. Through the glare of the desert sun and swirling sand, the crimson surcoats of the foe came into view. The Sultan wasted little time with preparation or rousing speeches, and gave the orders for his men to advance and kill. As the infantry clashed, the Arabian knights pushed behind the Bretonnian line, sweeping through the peasant bowmen. The Bretonnian line soon began to melt away, and the awaiting knights of Araby swept in to ride down those that tried to flee. For all their pomp and pageantry, the Crusaders proved to be poor quarry for the warriors of Araby. Wadi Alisad was now secure, the first of the Sultan's conquests in his war of restoration. Such momentous sight deserved a fitting name, one that conveys the magnanimity of this historic occasion. From this day until the end of time, Wadi Alisad is no more. In its place stands the sacred town of Jaffaria. With the home province secured, the Sultan looked east, toward the city of Argill, a mighty coastal fortress much too splendid to remain in the Bretonnian hands. The Sultan departed Jaffaria and moved east, stopping only to rally more warriors to his side. Trade and commerce have long been an essential part of Araby's economic might, and the Sultan was eager to see his merchants once again hawk their wares in the bazaars and markets of the old world. Zahir el-Amari, a humble caravan merchant of great potential, was handpicked by the Sultan himself and provided with a generous investment to take his caravan to the Talain capital of Miragliano. The road to Argill was an arduous one, with precious little shade and water along the way. The men had soon become weary. Whilst their situation appeared it could not become any more desperate, fate had a cruel joke in store. Bretonnian soldiers swarmed the column from both sides, and the warriors of Araby hurried to form a defensive line as catapults hurled heavy missiles into their ranks. Without time to receive orders, the cavalier captain made an executive decision and took his cavalry on a desperate charge toward the artillery. After routing the smaller force on the left flank, the cavalry wheeled and drove into the archers on the right. Despite the advantage of surprise, the Bretonnians had fumbled, the skill of Araby's warriors too great to overcome, and the enemy fled the field. That night, the men of Araby toasted their victory with cups of Bretonnian wine, seized from the enemy caravan before they could escape. The great Bretonnian ambush soon became a favourite joke of the rank-and-file soldier. Come the morning, their heads still swimming from the effects of the wine, the men departed camp and pursued the remnants of the failed ambush. Exhausted and with nowhere left to run, the paltry remains of the Bretonnian host made a final stand. Using his arcane abilities, the Sultan cast down the Bretonnian commander as the cavalry swept in around the enemy position. With the enemy dealt with, the Sultan continued his eastward march. While travelling along the rolling dunes of Nehekhara, the caravan chances upon a tomb that has been uncovered by the desert winds. The tomb appears to be untouched by time and ripe for picking. Once inside, the men encounter a regally dressed skeleton who claims to be a prince, and that our caravan leader is his long-lost king. The skeleton promises to guard his king for eternity, but all the men see are the riches that were buried here alongside the prince. Amused by the novelty of an undead servant worshipping him as a monarch, Zahir had his men stand down and welcomed the ancient prince into the caravan. Meanwhile, the Sultan readied his forces for the final push on Argill. Born either of bravery or foolishness, the Bretonnian garrison inside the city made the decision to leave the safety of the walls and marched out to meet the Sultan in open battle. Despite leaving the safety of the walls, the Bretonnian vanguard was reluctant to advance too far forward until the rest of the column had caught up. Seeing this, the Sultan seized the initiative and advanced. As the lines closed in toward one another, the opposing cavalry forces crashed together on the flanks in a test of horsemanship. As the Bretonnian line crumbled, a few particularly brave units managed to steady their nerves and returned to battle, where they personally were met with the Sultan's wrath. The strength of an ogre is unmatched anywhere. At least that's what this group of rotund mercenaries assured when offering to guard the trade caravan on its route. Their claim is ridiculous, but the extra muscle wouldn't go amiss. Ogre's services, however, certainly would not come free of charge. Understanding the value these brutes would add to the safety of their convoy, Zahir opened his purse and paid the ogres their fee. A great clash at the Nasser Dunes ended with the obliteration of the Slaneshi cultists, and the disciples of the Moor taking up residence in the ashes. The presence of these expansionist ogres was of great concern to the occupants of the surrounding lands. Sultan Jaffar launched his attack on Argill, the enemy commander slipping away by boat and leaving the city to fall. The city was a great prize for the Sultan and the entire nation of Araby. Such a prize deserved a suitably regal name. From this day, all shall know this great city as Jaffar. A cacophony of roars and feral shrieks rang out ahead of the caravan. A dark elf beastmaster approached. By the look of his shackled beasts, he has recently returned from an expedition into Norska and poses little threat. His retinue of hunters visibly weary and battered from their run-ins with the Northmen and critters of the tundra. With a tired, drooky sneer, he offers the caravan one of his creatures in exchange for some slaves. It did not take long for Zahir to agree to the exchange and take the wild mammoth into his care. He must now think of a name for his new pet, deciding to name the creature after a Norscan tart he once met at a pleasure house, Mallory. After taking some time to rest his weary soldiers, the Sultan departed Jaffar and made haste toward Fyrus. With the Sultan's domain growing ever wider, the need for multiple forces had become a pressing issue. In Jaffaria, the Emir Tamid Mahmudi was raised to general, and began the recruitment of additional forces to be commanded as the Sultan wills. These additional forces could not come too soon. Having swept aside the hedonists to the south, the ogres now sought to satiate their appetite on Araby. The Sultan marched across the straits and made straight for the city of Fyrus. The riffraff of Bretonnia mustered on the field for their final stand as the legions of the Sultan closed in. As the Bretonnian line faltered and broke, their commander fled for his own life, with the Sultan in pursuit. Broken and bloodied, the Bretonnian crusaders were now crushed. The Sultan had reclaimed his lost lands. With the final conquest against the Crusaders, Fyrus had been returned into the Sultan's grace. This was truly a joyous occasion. The Sultan, however, found issue with the name of his newest asset. Perhaps something more elegant would be more suitable. Welcome to Jaffarus. The celebrations did not last long, as the ogre horde was soon spotted on the horizon, marching toward the Bakr oasis. Sultan Jaffar left Jaffarus and sailed homeward to Al-Haik, hoping he could arrive in time before the ogres did too much damage. In Jaffaria, Tamid Mahmudi bolstered his efforts to recruit ever more troops before the ogres could march on the town. For the citizens of Bakr Oasis, the worst had come to pass. The ogre horde marched on the town with no relief in sight. The local garrison assembled and put up what resistance they could, but the town was soon overrun. Those that could not flee in time found themselves as ingredients in the ogre's cookpots. But the unfortunate news did not end there. In an unusual display of tactical brilliance, The ogre's secondary force had marched in the opposite direction and assaulted the walls of Jaffar, taking the city with ease. As if the gods were testing the Sultan's patience, a rogue ogre horde had emerged outside the city walls of Al-Haik itself. Fortunately, the Sultan was able to sail into port with his host before the ogres could move on the city. And with a final touch of disaster, the remnant Bretonnians had banded together and made a desperate play to retake Fyrus. The patchwork garrison assembled on the field, taking a beating from the Dane's arcane abilities. The battle began to turn in the defenders' favour as the enemy ranks began to break. With their foe routed, the Arabian units hurried to aid their comrades. With the rank and file dispatched, the garrison turned their attention to the Dame herself, who put up a valiant fight, but it was all for naught as she too was cast down. In a small mercy, the garrison at Fyrus had held. Thank you so much for watching. So I've been gone a lot longer than I anticipated. I do love doing these videos, but around the summertime I ended up going through some unpleasant legal stuff with my old employer, and then I had to start a new job, so I've just not really had the time to commit to focus on making any narrative campaigns due to just how time consuming they are to make. But I'm finally getting used to my new routine and I'm ready to get back in the saddle. In regards to our two outstanding series, we've got the Bretonnia and the Vampire Counts campaigns, and it's unfortunate but I'm not going to be able to finish them. It's just been far too long, the break in between, and I can't just pick it up and get back into it after taking such a long break. With the Vampire Counts I'm not too bothered, we literally had a single video, so I don't really care about abandoning that. We can come back to it later at some point, but I am a bit upset about the Bretonnia campaign. I love the idea that we did of the collective storytelling where people will pitch in character and unit ideas and then I incorporate them into the story. And I still stand by it as being something worth pursuing, but it didn't really work out, and it was because I executed it really poorly. Instead of getting pitches first and then building a story around it, I instead took pitches as I was going and then tried to merge them into the story as we went. So I ended up not having a coherent narrative, as I was more focused on getting all the characters incorporated rather than telling a story outside of the story of, the great quests and all that. But without the characters to focus on, it kind of fell flat, and that was my fault. And on top of that, it became a massive slog. Once we got into Athel Loren, it was just the same battle over and over again with the Wood Elves. Same battle on the same map over and over. And it was annoying to me having to play it over and over, edit the same battle every time, and I can't imagine it was that interesting to watch. It does bother me that I have to let it go because a bunch of people did take the time to pitch in their suggestions, and I don't feel great about having wasted that. But it's a learning experience, and hopefully I can do it a lot better next time. For this campaign, I'm not going to be doing any input from other people. It's just going to be me playing the game. It's basically a reintroduction for me after taking a 5-month hiatus, so I'm getting back to grips with making the videos whilst balancing that with having a new job. But I will be bringing it back for future campaigns, and I do have a good idea of what I'm going to do it with, but that's something for down the line. So that's it for me. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back shortly with episode 2. Thank you.